Who was Johnny Appleseed? Everyone I've asked about him either learned about him briefly in elementary school or doesn't have a clue who I'm asking about. So let's talk about the man behind the myths. Johnny, or John Chapman, wasn't just an aimless wanderer walking around sprinkling apple seeds wherever he went. He was a frontier land flipper and a deeply philosophical person who helped shape the American Midwest. Born in 1774 in Massachusetts, Chapman grew up during the American Revolutionary War. His mother Elizabeth died when Chapman was very young, and after his father Nathaniel returned home from the war, he moved Johnny and his family to Ohio, where Nathaniel was deeded land in payment for his service. Johnny Appleseed didn't just love apples. He was trained as an apprentice nurseryman. He learned how to grow apples, which were milled for ciders that were essential to settlers' lives and consumed more than water during this period. At that time, the United States was expanding westward into the wilderness. Many people started looking west for space and land ownership. The law stated that one way to claim up to 100 acres was for a settler to plant at least 50 fruit trees to prove their intent. Johnny saw a business opportunity. In the beginning, he recycled leftover pulp at mills and cider-making facilities. He took canoes across water and walked with his horse across land. He traveled 100 miles ahead of the frontier, claiming fertile land, planting nurseries, and fencing them in. By the time settlers arrived, Johnny, or someone he had left there, were ready to sell them the saplings they needed to legally secure their homes. Johnny split his profits with the caretakers he had at his nurseries, and often he just took what he needed to continue traveling. The myths say he wore a tin pot hat and rags wherever he went, maybe sometimes for fun or a bit of storytelling, but in fact he mostly wore a handmade hat with a cardboard bill like a prototype of our modern baseball caps. But the rags were real. He wore handmade patchworks that he stitched together with what he could find and recycle. Because of his Swedenborgian faith, Johnny lived a life of extreme simplicity. He believed God was the power in all living creatures. He was a strict vegetarian and famously went out of his way to avoid harming anything. He always took his Swedenborgian Bible with him wherever he went and was in many ways a missionary for the Swedenborgian philosophies. He traveled barefoot, even in the snow, and he wasn't completely poor. At the time of his passing, he owned over 1,000 acres. He liked to travel freely and often preferred to barter for what he needed and give his extra money to those in need. In many towns he visited, he would simply stay with friends. With a great knowledge of medicinal plants, he often planted herb gardens in towns he left on his way. Chapman was a bridge between cultures. He was respected by Native Americans and American settlers alike, and could come and go freely. During the War of 1812, he famously warned settlers of an impending attack to prevent bloodshed. After the U.S. economy crashed in the 1830s, Chapman spent a lot more time with his family in Ohio after he fell into debt. He continued to tend his trees until he became ill and later died of pneumonia at the age of 70 in 1845. Today, Johnny Appleseed is remembered as more than just American folklore. Here in Ohio, for example, he's local history. From his monuments, statues, and murals to the Johnny Appleseed Museum in Urbana, his legacy is still growing. He was a businessman, a protector of nature, and a true American original. As always, thanks so much for watching and following my channel. If you love someone, please tell them, and I hope you have a historical day.